Hi everyone and welcome to Power Motoryacht. One of the bigger trends we've seen in the boating industry is the meteoric rise in popularity and quality of power cats. It wasn't that long ago that these vessels were largely considered to be unsafe, and because of that, were largely rejected by boaters around the world. Today's power cats are more sought after than ever for their seakeeping abilities, their efficiency, and the volume they offer. Often considered go-to vessels for charter, and now more and more for private ownership, this market is changing a lot. And few people have been more instrumental in their rise or have been a more outspoken champion for these boats than Aquila Power Cat president Lex Raas. In today's episode, I sit down with Lex as he shares how his love affair with power cats began and why he thinks this market will continue to grow in the years ahead. The Power Motoryacht podcast is part of the AIM Marine Group podcast network. If you enjoy this show, you might also be interested in the best stories in boating, which provides audio versions of your favorite stories from our magazine. And for those that like to take things just a little bit slower, you might consider checking out Trawler Talk. And for those most at peace with a rod and reel in your hands, I encourage you to give Angler's Journal a listen. And now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Power Cat maven Lex Raas. Lex, thank you for joining me today. Good to catch up now at the craziness of a boat show.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely great to talk together about obviously one of my favorite subjects is power catamarans. So it's just like,
well, I'm going to start with your real favorite subject. I want to start with you, and I'd love to get a little more background because I've just been getting bits and pieces of your story over the years. Mm-hmm. Let's take things way back. Like, where are you originally from?
Okay, I was born in South Africa, actually in Pretoria, which is the capital there, and grew up. My parents were actually Dutch, but born in Indonesia, and then ended up in South Africa after the war and that. So yeah, I'm born and bred in South Africa. So learned to build boats there and sail and powerboat and row and everything over there. So yeah,
it sounds like you were a water rat from the beginning. But what was your path into boating? Were your parents into it? Did you discover the water through like water sports?
No, really, my dad, he was into. I mean, he's been a boater all of his life, and actually, I did my first sailboat race at the age of 4. So that was my first reel. But I've been sailing before then, sort of like Carol, my kids. They've all been in boating well before they could walk. So
right.
So that's same with me. I was into boating, just born into it, but played all sorts of sports, but always loved the water. Just nothing better than the water. So
no argument here. So you grew up sailing. Did you love it? Were you like did you love the racing thing?
Oh yeah, I did that. My dad he owned 2 magazines in South Africa, and one was for power and one was for sail. So he actually, competitively raced sailboats and also competitively raced powerboats. So I was thrown into that from a young age of being exposed to both power and sail. So I've always enjoyed both, although my latter years were all power. So
yeah, I get it. You came to the light. We all do. But well, that's amazing. I didn't realize that about your dad. So things are progressing. How did you get into the boat building side of things? What was your first official boating job?
So my dad had a small boat yard in a lake called Valdam in South Africa, and he was doing sailing schools and things, and was thinking about getting into boat building. And I was at the age of 15. I sort of I loved sport, but wasn't the best scholar, and actually I really dropped out of school at that point and started building boats. And we started a small, I built some wooden boats very first, but then we also started a little fiberglass boat that he designed, a little sailboat. And those were the days, the early 70s, which was really, nobody knew much about fiberglass at all. Yeah. So, we made all the mistakes you could possibly make. And it's actually been good for me. So, hands-on building boats, plugs, molds. I mean, there's nothing I ain't done on boats. So I think that was the cool, on the one side, yeah, that was my university. Was doing everything and learning. Yeah,
So were these, is it safe to say, so your dad had the yard, were these were one-off boats that you kind
yeah,
of
they
making
were
one at a time?
one-offs. Well, except the fiberglass one. So we built a couple of wooden, and we're
Hmm.
starting to dabble with some epoxies, but that was also early days for epoxies. But then we went to polyester, and
Okay.
was a couple of yards in South Africa, sort of starting out, swimming pools. It was really the pretty early days of polyester. So
Okay.
was a lot of fun. Yeah, but no, we were building little 22-foot sailboat. In those days, we were doing one a week, which for a small, tiny yard, we did everything.
You built one a week?
One a week, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's not nothing. You made it sound, you downplayed it. It's like a small, my dad had a small yard, but
Well, I was small, yeah,
you
yeah,
guys
but
were cooking.
we were cooking, yeah, and yeah, so that was all pretty good. And then, as I like to joke with friends, I said when I got some brains and money, and it wasn't a lot of money, moved to Cape Town and left my dad, and then got involved, and I started building boats with some guys that all sort of race boats really, and then met my wife Carol, and then we ended up with our own boatyard, which actually ended up being, well, we had about 80 employees, and we were building fiberglass boats. We were doing some special one-offs for the Navy, which in those days were like super composites, and then we're playing with carbon, and that was the early 80s, and
Wow.
and then started a little powerboat, which was that little high sea cat. That was my first sort of production powerboat, I guess. But that was in amongst sail and power, and so
Can you tell me a little bit about that boat? So that was your first power cat.
yeah. So there was a guy by the name of Dr. Hopper at the Stellenbosch University who developed the foiling, so the assisted foiling. And I really loved the idea and got involved, and we built the tooling for the Stellenbosch University, and we ended up building quite a few of them. And it was, tiny little boat, and that only had twin 30s, but we had these foils on, and really worked very, very well. But there was still a lot to learn. And then, yeah, that's sort of my introduction to that was building boats there. Became the Beneteau importer because Beneteau was on the rise, and that was early 80s as well, actually. So we actually slowed down building, started importing Beneteaus, all sailboats at that point. But then the sanctions came along, and the exchange rate divided by 3 overnight. So it was like, oh, okay, go back to building. What? But I called up Beneteau and said, hey, you got a job for me and in France? And as soon as you get it, you can start. So didn't have anything in writing. I sold the farm, the business, 4 kids, and flew to Europe and started working with Beneteau there. And then I got exposed to more power boats and sailboats and fishing boats and everything. So that was really a huge opportunity to work for Annette Roux at that point. And then I moved to the US, where the Beneteau factory was set up in Marion, South Carolina. So I was part of that. So that was that was the boat building side. So and that was 1986 actually. So a lot happened in the early 80s. A lot.
Yeah. Those are some busy years. I want to take it one more step backwards. If you could help me out, I'm gonna ask you to put your Power Cat historian hat on, because you're telling me about these early power cats that you were making with assisted foils in the early 80s. What power cats existed prior to that? I mean, when? Because I'm really not sure. I mean, were they around? Were they exceptionally rare at
Yeah,
that time?
it was starting in South Africa. They've always been pretty much ahead. Australia and South Africa sort of
Okay.
discovered because of the rough waters. So it was starting.
Okay.
It was very early days on catamarans. In fact, my dad worked with the Navy there on a big catamaran as well at that sort of time. But yeah, it was not, catamarans in those days were considered dangerous, risky, just not, but everybody proved soon enough that that was the way to go if you were in really rough waters. In South Africa, they also launch off beaches a lot. So, they launch in the rough water and then they also come back on the beach. I mean, in big waves. And of course, the catamaran has a lot of advantages because it's shallow draft. You hit the beach, it doesn't fall on its side. Smaller engines, more economical. So I guess that for me was the real when it started. But then I drifted away because when I got with I was building more monohulls and that, and involved with Beneteau, and sort of only later on did I get the opportunity to really revisit catamarans. Really, so
All right. One more. Just I'm going to belabor this just for one more second. I guess who do you think was the first power cat builder that built boats in kind of like a production capacity, not like little ones and twos, but who was there anybody prior to when you got into building your power cats that anyone was putting out real numbers or
I was not exposed to like the US market and that, but not really. I mean, there were just little guys here, little guys there, but there was nobody really pushing it back in the in the early 80s. I mean, it was there was some guys around, but it was really, I mean, cats were really considered dangerous boats and very ugly boats as well, quite candidly, and they were damn ugly.
Well, we're gonna hold off on that because I want to get into the aesthetics later. But I mean, is it possible? Would you say that when you started building power cats in the early 80s that could you have been the first production power cat builder at that point, or you think that
I doubt it? I'm sure Australia. I don't know. I'm very as far as catamarans, I mean, they've been back to the old Polynesian days, and it's so.
I get that. I'm talking in the modern era of production, but I know I hear what you're saying.
I wouldn't like to claim that because I'm sure there was somebody else building some boats somewhere somehow, and so I mean, we sort of one of the first in South Africa, sort of pushing it.
Okay.
Yeah, probably, but maybe not as well because I just, I mean, in those days you didn't have internet or anything. It was like, you weren't really connected with the world or everything that was going on. So
I like to say I'm not going to quote you on it, but we are on a podcast here. But it's safe to say you were early. You were early.
Definitely early, and seeing the advantages of it and being exposed to it. I mean, there were there were hydroplane racing boats around, which are fundamentally little cats. If you think about pontoon boats, they've been around forever. It's a catamaran. So
yeah, okay.
So I mean that's fair. I mean the catamarans, pontoon boats. I think we can go back a long way. That's a cat.
You're right.
So
no, all right.
I'd love to claim, but I can't.
No, that's fair. I was just trying to get a sense of really who was out there at that point and how early you were. So, all right, we're gonna fast forward. You're at Beneteau, jumped around a lot. You found yourself in the U.S. Where do we go from there?
So from Beneteau, we got the factory going, and then I went back to France and actually became head of product development for global France. And we had left some of our kids here, and then I went over to France. We had Jean, my youngest son, Carol, my wife, and we went over there and loved the job, loved working with the company. But we had our other family here, and sort of after a year of working, we put family first. And but interestingly enough, at that time at Beneteau, I worked with amazing people there. but I was actually handling the sales with the Moorings with Charlie Carey, who founded the Moorings, and the team, which was Simon Scott and various guys, and they were looking for somebody. So I'd sort of moved right up to the senior management in Beneteau, but they had a sort of a middle director of logistics at the Moorings came up, and was in the US, was here in Clearwater, and yeah, big step backwards in terms of, but in terms of income and that. But we wanted to get back to the States and came back to the Moorings and joined them. And then that's when I really got the opportunity to really start digging into catamarans again. Now, at Beneteau, they had a boat called the Blue 2, which was a sailing catamaran, which I used quite a bit, but it was a great concept, but it was, too low bridge deck, so a lot of things so it was a good learning curve for me as well. But on joining Moorings, that's when things opened up for catamaran. All sailing cats in the beginning, and we can talk about how power cats came into the Moorings life at that time.
That's exactly what I want to transition to. Yeah.
So,
I mean, was it you pushing it, or is this just like, conversations about where?
No, so the Moorings had a few cats. So Lagoon, which was still part of Jeanneau at that point, and Jeanneau, the JTA, which was Jeanneau Technology Advance out of France, and then TPI, Tillotson Pearson, were building lagoons up in Rhode Island, and the Moorings had a few lagoons. Fontaine Peugeot was definitely sort of on the front edge of it. But these were the older lagoons, and there was also a change in, Jeanneau went under and Group Beneteau bought them, and they didn't. So yeah, let me step back a bit. So on joining the Moorings, there were a bunch of lagoons, and customers, the management team said, people are not enjoying these catamarans. And I was like, no, I don't believe that. I said, I got to understand this. So I said to Simon Scott, I said, I want to do a survey on everybody that's taken out the lagoon. I want to understand. And fundamentally, they loved the idea of a catamaran because of the stability. Their friends were happy, but the galley was down below, the traveler, sail controls at the back end of the cockpit, tiny engines, so they couldn't motor upwind. So I took all that in and said to the exec team at the Moorings, I said, hey, I think we should not be getting out of sailing cats, because they decided to get out of sailing cats.
Wow.
And I said, absolutely the wrong thing to do. So they sort of gave me allowed to go ahead and work on this. So I came up with some ideas on my boat, talked to a lot of builders actually to try to get it going. And I got rejected by every builder, including Fontaine Peugeot at that time, who said they would do boats for the Moorings, but they wouldn't make the changes that I really believed we needed. And, at that time, Beneteau had just taken over Jeanneau and Lagoon, and they actually had no plans on continuing at that time, which changed later on. But for me, it was like I couldn't get a builder. So I called up my buddy in South Africa, John Robertson, and said, hey, John, you want to build some cats? And he was like, whoa, I've only helped finish one. So I said, yeah, but what if I organize 18 orders and we develop a boat ourselves and we get going? And he said, okay, I'm not sure how we're going to do that, but let's figure it out. So, so we met, and there were a couple of ups and downs, and Moorings was second guessing the exec team. And I eventually put it on a line and said, well, look, either we go with this cat or I'm going to go somewhere else and do it. I had no clue where I was going to go, but in any case, I really
somewhere though, yeah.
I was so convinced this was the right thing to do. And Simon Scott, and got to always recognize him, because he put the full support behind us, and we ordered 17 boats. Moorings to Robertson came. We started the sailing cats, which Leopard is a huge brand now, and that came from absolutely nothing. So John's, he was a lifelong friend of mine, and Jerry Kane, his partner then, who unfortunately is deceased now. But so I guess the next question is, how did the power cats happen?
When do we chop off the mads? Exactly. You're doing both sides of the interview, Lex. You gotta let me take my half. But you're exactly right. When did we cut those annoying masks off? When do we get into the power cats?
So, it's a fun story because I always love telling the story. So as Moorings, at that stage, I was VP of operations, and we decided under Arthur Warshaw, who was the CEO then, we said, hey, we're going to get into power cat charters, and power guys and sail guys, they don't mix. This was our wisdom. So we started Nordic Blue.
Right.
Which was started in St. Thomas, because we said, no, powerboat, you've got to keep them separate, this, that, the other. So in any case, we started Nordic Blue, and we put in some well-known American brands to start it off. We had like 15 boats, I think, but
wow,
the boats didn't hold up. Charter's tough. It's tough on boats. But the fun thing is that we were like, so somebody would come down and say, oh, sorry, but, powerboat's down, but we get you over to the BVI. We've got some sailing cats there, but just don't worry about the mast. Just run it like a powerboat. And the customer's like that, and then they'd go out for the week. They wouldn't put the sails up, and they'd come back and they'd say, "Damn, that was the best vacation I've ever had." And so we like, oh, okay. Customers are really so. We actually abandoned Nordic Blue brand because we realized also that, everybody goes to the BVI. It's not about power and sail. The number one thing is being on a boat and having fun with your family and friends. And
rum.
As the Moorings, we just had to provide the best possible platform for people to do this on. And so with Robertson Kane, we said, well, let's just not put the mast on. Let's put a flybridge on it, and off we go. We did have a few Fonem Peugeot power cats because they were actually into it pretty early. But again, there were quite a lot of charter things that were not quite what we wanted to see. So we developed within Leopard. And they were really sailing cats, put in slightly bigger engines, but the accommodation was the same. And we started Moorings Power. And, that was sort of a hallelujah moment to say, you know what? Number one, the market is so much bigger, of course, the power market. And number two, people in the BVI, they're coming down there not to think power and sail. They're coming down to think vacation.
Yeah.
And to this day, sail remains more popular. But if you go down there and you see everybody, all the people on a sailing cat, which has become huge now, is very dominant. Most of them don't put the sails up. So,
right.
We believe strongly that if you look into the future, it'll be dominated by power catamarans, the charter business. We really believe that. It's in the Aquila thing. So that's exactly how how we got around that. Now, there were other power cat manufacturers in play at that stage, but very, very early and small. World Cat Glacier Bay was probably, you asked earlier on, and Glacier Bay was probably the first real production power cat, I would guess. I would say Glacier Bay was sort of the front runners of it, and then World Cat, and obviously Freeman came along later on, and
sure.
So I should have thought of Glacier Bay earlier on, but they were early.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then we fast forward to the founding of Aquila, right? Because that was the next.
Yeah. Well, let me explain to you just quickly how the transition from Moorings happened. So I departed Moorings in 2010, but before that, during the crisis, I had contacted Bill McGill at MarineMax because, the Moorings Power, Moorings Sail had a huge database of sailboaters, but not of powerboaters. I was CEO at the Moorings from 2000 up until I left in late 2010. But I'd been in discussions about 2008 with Bill McGill. And then, of course, the crisis hit all of us and everybody was, really hunkered down and focused. And So when I left in 2010, when we were still on the back end of the crisis, I called, and I was so impressed with Bill. I mean, he was just so gung-ho, and it was a sort of a shame that never worked out. In any case, I left. I was under a non-compete in 2011, and I called Bill McGill, and I said, "Hey, Bill, I'm looking for something to do." And we met, and we said, "How about Power Cats? Let's do something with Power Cats." And I said, "Let's go." So we had no clue what we were going to do, but I had to wait for my non-compete to end, and then we decided. And again, actually, interesting stories, because it was like sailing cats. Bill and myself contacted the big brands in the US, and they all said, no interest. We're not interested. Either the factories were too narrow, they felt they were too small, there was no future. Same story as sailing cats in the 80s. I was faced with that in the early 2010s, and Bill and we looked at each other just like I did with Simon Scott. Said, "Well, we're going to make this happen. How are we going to make it happen?" So Sino Eagle, the Chinese guys, we'd actually done a deal with them through Leopard. Just before the crisis, they were building boats for Leopard in a very small factory, and very impressed with them. And I said to Bill, "Why don't we go and meet these guys?" So we flew over in 2012, early 2012, met with them, and there was just a piece of dirt there. And we all said, between Bill and the Sean family and myself, and actually Jean was with me, and my other son David was with me, my wife Carol, and we said, let's make this happen. And it was literally a huge piece of dirt. And we said, okay, what I've always said, there's so many builders, boat builders, so many great products, and people have been, but a lot of them fail for very simple reasons, and that is that you have to have innovation, you have to have manufacturing, you have to have distribution. If you don't have distribution, and a lot of people, just going back, they got the innovation, they got the manufacturing, little factory, but if you don't have the distribution, you're pretty dead in the water, or it's going to be a long, hard struggle. And to have I still call it, it's just a total blessing to have MarineMax involved, and Bill McGill and the team over there, and then have the family in China and myself and my son's involved. So and drive a new product. That's how we started Aquila. So the brand is owned by the folks in China, by the Chong family. MarineMax had until recently the exclusive global distribution. Now that's America's, and that's a slightly, we're shifting gears a little bit. I call it, Aquila is no longer a teenager; it's now an adult, and it has to fend for itself completely, but still with a super, super strong relationship with MarineMax. So, so that's how that's really how Aquila came about. Was good people getting together, and that's what and then the ideas, and so we started on couple of boats for the charter business, and then started focusing more on the private owners, and then realizing it. So that's how it started.
Amazing. What was the first model Aquila came out with? Remind me.
So the first one was actually an Aquila 37, which was a modified Leopard, actually, because there was a partnership, and the tooling was in China. So we just built a few. Okay. Just to get going quickly, knowing that that's not the long-term plan. Right. We started on the Aquila 48. So that was really the first focus, and we partnered with J&J out of Slovenia, and we started. And it was a boat, predominantly focused on charter, 4-cabin, 4 equal head, front cockpit. So sort of where the market was at the time, but it was a good way to get boats out and to get people trying Power Cats.
Sure.
Because it was like, I'd meet with some of the sales guys and say, "What? You're going to do a catamaran that can just get to 20 knots?" Everybody was like, "I've got to go 40 knots," and it's like, there's a market out there. And Bill McGill was amazingly supportive all the time.
Wow.
So yeah, so it was the 48, and yeah, I think we built close to 40 of them. So it was okay, but not where we wanted it to be.
Yeah.
But then following was the 44.
Mm-hmm.
So that
And how many of those were built? Because that's the bread and butter,
well,
right?
that's probably the number one inboard catamaran in terms of units ever built in the world, and I think it's going to be, we're over 200 units now. We're probably going to be at about 220 soon, somewhere around there. So yeah, that's been an amazing success, and that was where we introduced the huge master cabin ready for the private owner. So that was just a knockout straight away.
And that's what I wanted to ask, just to get a sense of the timing of when the shift from charter to kind of this focus, not that it ever left charter, but this focus on private ownership that started with the 44 and then
so
snowballed with your later models.
So the 48 was we had a game plan all the time, which has been so cool. And we, up every year or 18 months, we update our strategic plan, and we've really lived up to it. So it was like, okay, we can get to the market quickly with the 37. All right, what's our next way? Because power cats are like, Fon and Peugeot had some, I think Lagoon had the 43, but they didn't quite hit the sweet spot with those boats. And we said, okay, we've got to get people using the boats, and that was through charter. But we know that the future is in private. That's where we don't want to be known as a charter boat. We know we want to start there, but our product, and that gave us the time for the Aquila 44 to really focus on it and take some big risks, because some things on that boat that never ever had been seen before. So so that was cool. It was really cool to get that boat going. It was slow in the beginning, but it just kept going and going and going, and still goes today. So the sales on the boat. So it's a 7-8-year-old design now. So we're still selling it.
That's amazing. There's two directions I kind of want to go in, but I think this is probably the right time, because I don't want to talk about like the last few years of Aquila, but let's talk about the aesthetics of the Power Cat, because I think it's I mean, you admitted it at the front. I don't want to misquote you, but it was, they were always more of a functional platform.
They were ugly, the birds. I mean, that was
I wouldn't say that, but you can say that.
You could see a cat from a long way off. You could say, okay, that's a cat, and it just didn't really do anything for a lot of people. If you were like, okay, that's robust and strong and everything, but and the evolution, it's hard. I mean, it is hard to get the boats to, because it's really a function, aesthetics wise at hard aesthetics. It's basically, it's a question of, you have to have bridge deck clearance. Okay, and that is pretty much, it gets a little bit bigger as you get longer, but not at the same ratio. So you got your bridge deck, you got your headroom in your salon, you got your headroom in your flybridge. So there's no magic in that. You need 6.5 foot for your salon and 6.5, 7 foot for your flybridge. Plus your structure, so you end up at this height. So the smaller the boat is, the harder it is. And then even on smaller boats like center consoles and that, I mean, if you want the boat to really look good, you've got to drop the flybridge, the bridge deck clearance all the way close to the water. But that's not good. So it's that balance of trying to get your aesthetics, and that was always and remains a challenge today. But I think the whole industry has got better at it, and we certainly believe because we've managed to keep really good bridge deck clearance. That is one of our sort of our DNAs is good bridge deck clearance. Our early boats could have done with a little bit more, as we learned. You're always learning, and so we've increased the bridge deck clearance, to a ratio where we feel it is really good for running offshore, and you can really avoid the majority of the banging, and if not all of it, depending on what speeds and that you're going. So that that has been an issue, the banging of bridge decks, but we know what we got to do now to avoid that, and I think other guys have as well. So, but aesthetics has been the challenge. So the longer you get, the easier it is.
Well,
On a cat, because you're pretty much the same height.
What I think we saw that with you guys, especially with the 70, but the 50 I was just on that you guys debuted at Lauderdale. Um, you know, and not just saying this because you're on the call, but I think that personally that's one of the prettier boats in that category. And to me, I look at the 50 and it's like, wow, this is a major jump for this is a jump for Aquila, this is a jump for Power Cats. And maybe it has to do with, I think the acceptance of maybe the hull side windows that are, just you look at how those have evolved. They used to be small ports, that let in a little light, and I think maybe that's had a huge effect. I think is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think what drove the 50 shape fundamentally is that the people love the customers love the full beam master up front, and
Yeah,
most of our competitors don't do it, and
I like that. Yeah,
hopefully they stay that way. But we really, a lot of them have got the walk through into a cockpit, which also has its advantages. But you got to, like with all boats, you got to make decisions, you got to make compromises, and you've got to. But our yachts version, we know that our strength is our full beam master. But one of the challenges for older folks is steps on a boat. When you and with cats, if you on the you got to go down in the front. So what drove us to say, okay, so how do we make a cabin that's all on the same level, the smallest possible boat, which drives tended to say, hey, we need to relook at the shape of the boat. Which was the Explorer, and we watched a lot on what's happening with the super yachts and the luxury yachts, where they all have this more robust look and this.
yeah.
So because we started working on this boat like 2 years ago, and we said, okay, we really think that we call it sort of the Explorer look, but it's got that. And then to your point, the windows, now you open up a whole different world on windows as well, because your freeboard's increasing up there.
Yeah.
And the challenge with big windows is if you're going to comply to Category A, C certification, they have to be super strong. I mean, you're talking, half inch, 3/4 of an inch of tempered glass. This,
Yeah.
and it's heavy. But if you design it, so the boats have to be designed for it, and we have. I mean, even like on our 70, we had to go through a whole rigorous testing process. We had to drop weights from certain heights to try to break the glass, and we had to show the CE certification guys. And so, but that's become more and more popular now. But it's you got to make it strong.
Yeah.
Boy, what a difference! I mean, that owners, you've seen it. I mean,
Yeah.
I just love hearing from guys like you that say, wow, that's a whole step forward, because that's what we wanted. We wanted to really, as I said to our team, I said, people are starting to copy a lot of what we're doing. Once we put that boat out, everybody's going to go, oh dear.
Yeah.
They just jumped a whole few steps forward again.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. It's
so yeah, we're excited about the reception of it at Fort Lauderdale Boat Show. It was just a tough market environment, and we sold the heck out of the boat.
it sounds like you guys had an amazing show. So that's
so I go back, great manufacturing, great innovation, and it wouldn't happen without Marine Max. It's guys are really good. So
that's well said. I want to touch on just these last few years of Aquila. I mean, you guys have grown in every way, shape, and form you could grow. Up with the 70 to the smaller boats. You get the Molokai series, the 28, and it feels like you guys are cranking out new models. It's certainly faster. I think this is gonna be the fastest it's ever been. That must excite you? I mean, just to see, Aquila. I mean, I should know this off the top of my head, but how many models do you guys have right now, and what's kind of the driving force for this, this expansion and this real push?
Well, it's our partners, the Shong family. They said right in the beginning, they said, okay, we're only going to do this if we become the biggest catamaran builder in the world. That was been always, and Bill McGill and myself said, yeah, well, that's why we want to do this. So, we entered in we call it the yacht segment, which is really the flybridge cruiser, I guess you could call that. And, the market can only be such a size, and you can only get, yes, you can maybe get to the biggest percentage, but catamarans are still an evolving thing. So how do you really grow? Is you got to go after the different segments, and you got to really come up with something really, really good, and even create new segments. Which was, I can touch on our Aquila 36. That when we drew that up on paper, there was nothing out in the market like that. But in fact, there was nothing that was even comparable to it. It was really a sort of a blue ocean concept, and it's proven to be really, really successful. That boat. I mean, we're going to be at 300 units pretty soon, and still out, selling out into the forwards right now. So, we sort of went for the sport segment, outboard. We brought foiling. So going back into my early experience with foils, we played with that boat with Marillion Melvin. We put foils on, and amazing. We sell about half the units now with 300s and foil. Other half is with 400s and no foil, but in fact the performance is identical and the consumption is significantly better. So that boat, so the 36, so we came up with a Aquila Hydroglide, which is, we call it semi-foiling because we see all these boats screaming around on foils, but everybody's got a helmet and tethered to the boat and things like that. So we don't we're not sure that seat belts and dog leashes are needed on boats right now. So we want to make it, and I'm sort of switching a little bit here, but because, you're sort of saying, the segments are why did we set? So the sport, we then decided on the fishing segment, obviously being a huge segment, and some really good players in that, So, you got to come with your A game. So spent a lot of time on that with the fishing segment, and now we're going to be moving into some other segments at Miami, which is going to be a really, which we've sort of unofficial, it's sort of a coupe version, but foiling. The boat still comes standard with foils, and really, really impressive. I'm so excited to get those boats out into the market.
Yeah, I know. I hear you guys are planning a big Miami show this year, which is incredible. I like to start to wrap things up by shifting off. Aquila, clearly a brand that continues to be off to the races. I think Elaine, your son, told me three new models coming for next year, and more on the way after that, which is
three. No, more than three next year.
More than three in 25? Oh boy. It's something you want to tell us here live to our millions of listeners?
No, I can't. No, we've got the coupe range. We've got a couple of other boats that'll be debuted next year as well. So late next year, but okay. No, and then we've got an amazing pipeline in different sectors, and really, really good things, because there's just for us is I don't know where you're going with the next one, but I do. Can I bring up one subject?
Please.
Because I think, I go back to the foiling, the sustainability. We talk a lot about, folks, and they say, but with our newer boats, these coupes coming up, that we're going to be running them for compared to equal size other boats. We will run at 30 to 40, in sort of mid-30s to 42 mile an hour. And for actually smaller boats, we will run, between 35 and 50% more efficient than other boats out there. So just think 35 to 50% more efficient. It's pretty mind-boggling, and so we really focus on that. Our factory is all covered in solar cells. We a lot of things we do, and some other projects that I was referring to that are very focused on that segment as well. So exciting.
Well, I don't think it's a secret to remind people that the 50 is being offered with hybrid propulsion, not yet, or I mean, I guess a boat hasn't been built with hybrid, but it's being offered.
Yeah, the 70 will be here with a hybrid actually early next year. Yeah, with a full hybrid system, and so that's exciting. Another little thing that we've been working on. It's been taken time to develop really good, and it's running super well. So,
well, that's incredible. Everyone's talking about sustainability, but I think nobody is putting up the kind of efficiency numbers that you guys are by incorporating the foils and the hull efficiency. So really, I respect that you guys are walking the walk there and not just talking about it. It seems like everybody is, but that's some really impressive.
Yeah, there's an interesting stat on the 36s. It's the number one selling foiling boat in the world. I mean, nobody has done, just semi-foiling, not full foiling.
Right.
We don't talk about it enough, but that's the reality, is that we build a lot of foiling boats now, and we will be building even more. So,
I personally love that 36. That one. That one calls me, just with a young family, and I just think there's a lot of smart features on it that really attract the newer boaters, and not just younger and older, just the way people are using boats these days. I think
absolutely
it's a really cool platform.
Our new sport boats are becoming up, are very, very focused on sort of the younger folks and getting them into boating at a better price point and that. So that's something else, and we're pretty far down the track already on that. So that's also, and we see that'll bring a lot more people into power cats as well. So bring them in as early as we can. So
I think that's what's really smart about kind of your whole story, is that you're not just in all these different junctures, you're not trying to just grow a brand, but you're trying to grow the category. It's
absolutely.
Like the first Aquila's in the charter, so people could experience it. And I think it's one of those things that, once you have to experience it. Once you experience it, it's almost like, joystick docking or something. So once you really experience time on a power cat, it gets its hooks into you. You feel the appeal.
Yeah. Interesting. Just little side note, our little 28s, we've sold quite a few of the Cuddies over in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And we've sold, to the top watermen in Hawaii that have had other boats before. I mean, these are serious water guys, whether it's surfing or anything like that. I sent you one picture with one in front of Jaws there, and that's Kai Lenny with the Red Bull team that they charter the one. And everybody that goes on those boats, they say, go across the Pailola channels or anything, they go, God, I've never been on something that handles like this. So, our boats do it.
No, they walk the walk. Otherwise, and that's got to be true, because people would know it by now. You wouldn't see. Yeah. I heard you guys are almost up to 1,000 boats, and that wouldn't be the case if you guys, like you said, didn't kind of walk the walk there. But what I want to jump to next is, so we started from 15 years old, dropping out of school to build boats. I want to go back to your story a little bit. There's a rumor that you're choosing to slow down. I feel like that must be a rumor. You don't seem to me like somebody that slows down. I saw you at the show, and I don't see a guy that looks like he's going any slower. But I mean, maybe you want to touch on where you're at. I know I got to meet Elaine, and I know your son Gene are both kind of taking leadership roles within the company. If you just want to give you the chance to talk about how that feels.
Yeah, I'm super, super proud of where we are, and yes, I am taking more the backseat role now, and that is, it's family and health related a little bit. That's sort of driving that, but also, I've always had a feeling in our industry, it's a lot of older folks. They're really good, they really know, but not making way for the younger generation. And so I've always said to myself, we got to make sure that Aquila is being driven always with younger folks. So, Frank Chong, who's the CEO, he's in his mid 40s. Elaine Jean, in mid 40s. Nick Harvey, who's come on board from Group Beneteau, he's now a chief revenue officer, also in that age. And so the great thing for me is that the Chong family asked me to stay on as an advisor. So yeah, I mean, I'm still going to be very involved, but I'm not going to have the daily stress. We've got a team. Elaine is global brand manager now. All of our folks, I mean, whether it's Jure from Slovenia, who's our chief designer under Jean. It's a young team for our industry. For me, that's exciting. That's super exciting. We've built a new marketing team. Marine Max did a great job of marketing Aquila, but as I said, Aquila's gone from being a teenager to an adult now, and Aquila is now responsible for its own marketing, and that's so that these are all exciting times, and bringing on some real experts in those areas, because we've got a great product, we've got a great idea, we've got lots of innovation in that, but it's all about the people at the end of the day. I mean, that's I've been blessed with success, but I've also been, I worked for NetDrew, one of our global industry leaders. I then took over Moorings, which was the biggest charter company, and I've been working for the biggest distribution company as well, because I've have the Marine Max hat on until next year also, and I've been involved with Aquila. So I've been very blessed, but I also recognize the importance to hand over, because there's been some iconic brands there that have sort of not stayed with it because the younger generation think different. They use boats different. They have different focus. And there's yes, I am. I'm not disappearing, but I'm going to be more on the. I mean, I spend half my time in Hawaii on the outrigger canoe paddling, which is multi-hull. It's not quite a cat, but is sort of. And so I like to spend a lot of time on the water. For me, it's super important to be on the water. So yep, that the rumor's right, but I'll still be, supporting everybody all along the way, and it's cool because, like John is heading, the 50 is his product, the Aquila 47. Molokai cat, which is a stunning boat, is 100% his project. So how proud can I be? It's something that's out there, and the team have developed. So super, super, super happy and blessed.
That's really well said. And I got two last questions kind of on that, and just to kind of wrap things up here, but I guess, what do you think? So, your dad kind of got you started in this. He had a small yard, and I don't know how he felt about his 15-year-old dropping out of school to build boats, but what do you think his reaction to seeing, hey, Dad, it all kind of worked out? What do you think he would say, or what was his reaction to all the success that you and the family have seen?
My dad was a hard guy. He was very innovative, pushed us like crazy, allowed us to make mistakes. And he was always, at the end of the day, he was there behind us. But yeah, he's an amazing guy. Some of the things, innovation, he was always innovative, but sort of struggled to really make successful businesses out of his innovation. And I guess that's, in that is a lesson in its own, because I would see him come up with good ideas, but not really see them always through. He was like the first guy to have satellite dishes in South Africa. He was the first guy to build and fly radio controlled airplane in Europe. I mean, he was up there, but he never really benefited from any of them because so my I learned that, but I also learned that, man, you got to stick with your ideas and spend a lot of time, believing and converting people, because it's a tough road at times. I mean, it's been tough, really getting, as I said, builders rejected my ideas on sailing cats. They rejected my idea on power cats, but I just kept going, just because I really, really, really believed in it, and you see, and I have to, I mean, recognize, other folks like the Fontaine Peugeot guys, the Freeman guys, the World Cat guys, Leopard guys. I mean, there's great companies out there, but I always say to them, don't look at us as competitors. We're looking at the monohull market, because that's the biggest market, not each other. It's like, how do we get people to experience catamarans? Because as you said earlier, it really is different. It really is a different feeling, and I think a lot of people take friends and family who are not boaters on boats nowadays, and that's important. I think you pointed to that on the 36.
Yeah, no,
absolutely right. Absolutely right. And as we go forwards, that's going to be even more so. So, yeah.
One last personal question I like to ask people when we wrap up, and very interested to hear your answer. But what has boating, not necessarily boat building, but what has boating brought to your life?
Oh boy, the first thing would be my family. Huh? I mean, we've always been around the water, and we've got a daughter's a doctor, and another one's in marketing, two sons in the Aquila, in the boating business. So, I think it's the family, and then after that is the opportunity, to create stuff. But I think I mentioned earlier, I've had, to work with some of the most amazing people in our industry, whether it's builders or charter or distribution. And I think the ability to continue to learn, people, sometimes I laugh, well, I dropped out of school, but I can tell you, I've been at a university all my life, and I've still got a lot to learn. So wow. I think that's, that's the cool part about our business and boating and water is, I as I said, I paddle and I do downwind on big waves. There's so much to boating. There's what a lifestyle. What a lifestyle. So make it your enjoyment or your hobby or your profession. Wow. What can be better?
Lex, no argument here. And I respect how much success, you've seen in boat building in the industry, but that you still enjoy the water so much, that you still like, that your passion is paddling and things like that. And I feel like I love the fact that you never lost that. That's kind of inspires me.
Yeah, no, it's the water's just, and it's trying to get boats to run better in the ocean, and man, that ocean can be tough.
It can. I've heard that. Yes, that's true.
That's the cool thing about it. It's just figuring out how to do better boats and that handle better. That's
well, Lex, I really appreciate your time today. You jumped on this call so quickly, but then sharing your story and your passion. I'm very excited to see what Aquila's got up its sleeve in the years ahead here, and hopefully I'll catch up with you in person at the next boat show.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Dan, and please, stay in touch with our team, and I'll make sure they stay in touch with you, because it's exciting times for us.
All right.
If you think it's exciting what we've done, hold on.
Oh, all right. There you go. That's the mic drop ending. So we look forward to it. Thanks again, Lex.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for listening to the Power Motoryacht podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did and you'd like to show the show a little bit of support, I'd appreciate it if you leave us a rating and review, or you can subscribe to Power Motoryacht magazine at pmymag.com/subscribe, which fuels all of our episodes. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, we'll see you on the water.
Without my love for the ocean.